Coach Natalie, and welcome to another episode of Jiu Jitsu for Dummies. In this episode, we're going to learn a position called the gift wrap and a submission called the rear naked choke, also known as the RNC. The rear naked choke gets its name from the fact that I'm going to be to the rear of Sally here, my jiu-jitsu dummy. And it's called the naked choke because it doesn't mean that I need to be choking someone with their own gi. I can do it just with my bare hands. In fact, it's the #1 submission that you'll see in cage fighting or MMA. But let's learn the position first of the gift wrap. Again. Now, it would be great to have someone just sitting in my lap so I could choke them out with a rear naked choke, but that very rarely happens. Most of the time in jiu-jitsu, you need to set up your submission by getting the person into a position voluntarily. In this case, and we've talked about this in other lessons, I want this arm, but I would like Sally here to give me that arm voluntarily. So I'm going to set it up by getting on the mount and pretending that I'm going to do the Americana. As you might know, the Americana looks like this, and it's its own submission. I'm doing this because the defense to the Americana is for Sally here to be able to get onto her side and protect her other hand. This is great. This is really the hand I'd like to see. As soon as she turns, I let her do so. I get up so that she can freely turn. I get behind her and I want to trap this arm in front of my chest. Hold it. I'm now underhooking the head, grabbing this arm, and this hand holds onto this wrist in what we call a figure 4 grip. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is going to be collapsing this leg behind me, sitting down on my own bottom, and getting both feet, which we call hooks, holding her down into roughly my lap. Again. I'm on the mount. I feint the Americana. She's going to turn, protect her arm here, which is great. As soon as she gets on her side, I get behind her, I trap this arm with my chest. Now I'm underhooking her head, grabbing her wrist, and taking my other hand, holding my own wrist. Collapse the leg behind me. Seen from another direction. Okay. So that's the gift wrap. The rear naked choke, as I've mentioned, means that you're behind the person, to their rear, and that you don't need the presence of a gi to choke them. So this is also based on the idea that you have a carotid artery running on both sides of your neck. Now, the carotid artery is responsible for getting blood up into your brain. If you press on these arteries, after 5 or 7 seconds, your brain will just kind of shut off and you'll go to sleep. It's not like a choke where you can't breathe, you know, that kind of thing. It's a choke, a blood choke, what we call a blood choke. So, normally in a gym situation, you'll know that you need to tap because your face will start to feel kind of puffy, and then you'll think, I probably should tap. If this was a self-defense situation, and certainly if you needed to get away, you're by yourself or whatever, and needed to get away from an assailant, I would say you want to, what we call choke the person out until they fall asleep, and for about every 1 second they're asleep, it'll take them about 2 seconds to wake up. So if you really needed about 20 seconds to get away, you would choke them till they were asleep for about 10 seconds, and then have an appropriate amount of time to get away. But we'll assume that you're in a gym where you're not in any danger and the person's going to tap. But how do we do the rear naked choke? Okay. I'm going to first do it with Sally, and then I'll do it without a dummy. So, we've now pulled our dummy, or Sally here, or your human partner, into your lap. First thing you're going to do is move your head to the opposite side. Still holding on to this arm, controlling it, I'm going to take this hand and put it onto this bicep. Now, dropping this other hand, I'm going to put my left hand behind their head, and 2 things. I'm going to squeeze my arm and push the person into the crook of my arm. Again, to see. To their side, trap the arm, and again, you're like this. Your head goes onto this side. This hand gets to this bicep. Drop the hand. the dummy. As I said, the carotid artery is on either side of your neck. You're pressing on the carotid artery with this part of your arm and this part of your arm. Grab your own bicep. Take this hand, put it behind their head, and you're pressing their neck into the crook of your arm. Now, they should tap. Even if they don't tap, you should probably let go. Because sometimes people will get put to sleep, and if it happens accidentally, well, that's okay, and sometimes that's pretty funny. But I don't really want to put people to sleep if I don't have to. So sometimes it's just enough to get the position and save someone from their stupidity. But like I said, if it was a self-defense situation, I'd have no mercy. Again, grab your own bicep. Take this hand, press the back of their head and their neck into the crook of your arm. Now that brings up some of the mistakes that people will sometimes make in doing the RNC. As I mentioned before, you want to have your feet holding on to your partner. We call the feet hooks, and it's important to secure the person sitting in front of you. Of course, they're going to be fighting. And in fact, it's so important to have the feet in that when you go to a tournament, you'll actually get 4 points for getting the back mount. But they don't give you any points if your feet are absent. It's that important. And obviously in a self-defense situation, you really need to secure the person. This second mistake that people might make is that their opponent or their partner has lowered their chin. And so you may be pressing on their chin, and while they may tap because it's painful, you're not going to put them to sleep. So if you're really trying to put them to sleep, self-defense, if nothing else, you really need to lift up their chin and get the arm in. I've heard for self-defense situations, if they've lowered their neck, you just put your fingers in their nostrils, yank their nose up, and that will lift the chin for you. But let's hope it doesn't get to that. The last thing is doing a windpipe choke. As I mentioned before, this isn't the kind of choke where someone can't breathe, but that's also assuming that your elbow is right in front of their Adam's apple. If you are in a rush, if you're hurrying this and you're trying to do the RNC and your elbow is not in front of their Adam's apple, then in fact you are crushing their windpipe, which is not what you want. You actually really want to put them to sleep. So again, starting at the beginning. Try to get them to turn over by feinting the Americana. You turn over to try to protect this hand. You trap this arm by your chest. You have your leg behind their head. Grab the wrist. Figure 4. Fall on your bottom. Get the one foot in, get the other foot in. I'm going to now move my head to the other side. Still securing. Now, grab my own bicep, let that go. Tap, tap, tap. Again. side. Grab your own bicep. Let go of that hand. Press it in. Well, in Jiu Jitsu, we do have a favorite, a saying, snap, nap, or tap. They'll either tap, you'll snap a limb, or they'll go to sleep. The RNC is certainly the submission that will put someone to sleep. Thank you very much for joining me for this episode of Jiu Jitsu for Dummies. I hope you enjoyed learning about the gift wrap position and the rear naked choke, or the RNC submission. I encourage you to reach out to me at Natalie Whitson Jiu Jitsu on Facebook. And thank you again for joining me for this episode of Jiu Jitsu for Dummies.